Welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, another week of podcasting. This is Far From Finished. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Josh. We're coming at you not so live. Guest on the show. Malik, would you like to introduce yourself?
Man, I don't even know how to introduce myself. I'm Malik. I don't have a cool nickname or anything like that. But yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I've been watching y'all's podcast, and I think it's dope. I just want to get included on everything and give my little piece of opinion.
Hey, yeah, man, I appreciate that.
We're glad to have you for sure. I mean, I've known Malik at least 9. I think it's going on 9 years now. Since I know for sure I was 13, so
yeah.
Looking at 9 years now.
A hot minute.
Going on a decade is kind of crazy. How
That's from like the percussion and shit.
Yeah, band and stuff. Became friends. Long story, but it's actually pretty cool how we became friends. To be honest, it was that time you had run away, bro.
Oh, shit.
You had come to my house. I know you. We weren't like super cool yet. You know what I'm saying?
First name basis.
Yeah, I was like, all right.
Essentially, what happened was, bro, I was tripping. I ran away. It was Halloween weekend. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I do remember.
And bro, my parents used to have the lockdown on me, and I wanted to go out. I wanted to go bullshit with my friends, and then I just got with my girlfriend right now, and I was like, damn, y'all not gonna let me go out? Fuck y'all, I'm gonna run away.
I'm going out regardless.
Nah,
I'm not going out bad, but I'm going out.
And I got the type of parents. My daddy always said, if you leave, don't come back, type shit. So I packed up like 3 bags. Bro, I was moving out. I was like, fuck y'all. I wrote a note and everything. Did you go with me to pick up my bags? Look, bro, I dropped them hoes off all across Bay Colony.
Wait, what?
On some like,
you left like some mystery bags in
I didn't.
hidden locations?
You didn't know that?
That's fucking awesome. What the fuck?
So that first night, I went to Kimberly's house. And her parents were like, you cannot fucking stay here.
I would imagine you just started dating her, said
They were like, you cannot fucking stay
You're
here.
like, Malik, do you know what time it is? Why are you over here, man?
Nah, they knew I ran away.
Oh, okay.
They were like, because I think Kimberly told her mom or somebody, and they were like, sorry, but, can't stay here. This is going to be the first place they look.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, what can I do? And this nigga lived right down the street. He lived right down the street. And I was like,
I didn't know what was coming.
I know where Daniel lives. Walk down there. And I think your mom answered it, though.
That's all you. I don't remember any. All I remember really was, look, this is a situation. I need a place to stay. So I went up to my mom. Hey, yo, this is a situation. I think he needs a place to stay. I don't know.
For real.
And you ended up staying there for a couple days, though.
Yeah, I think I stayed there for a day. And Chandler, I stayed with him for like a day. And then I was out of places to go. So I had to go home. So
You said, I guess this is his time.
So look, my plans didn't really work out how I thought they would.
Right.
So I'm back, but y'all don't gotta say nothing about that.
For real. Clearly, I didn't, get a job and get a house like I thought I was about to do.
In those 2 days that you were out the house.
At 15, I thought I was moving to Green K. I thought I was gonna figure it out.
Oh yeah. I said, emancipate me, I'm ready.
Bro, I can live off of $10 an hour.
Oh,
Yo, you were tripping big time. I don't know if it's going through your head.
I was in love. I was trying to get out the house. I was trying to get off of lockdown.
Oh yeah.
And it was time.
It'd be like that though, like whenever you're adolescent, you don't understand like the severity of like everything going around you. You don't know like really what you're doing or what that really can attribute to later on.
Yeah.
You're just kind of living in the moment, just like, wait, what the fuck happened? Like, nah, this doesn't cost that.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, here it does.
Yeah,
Like,
it
does, bro.
And I mean, ultimately, it was a lot of just being like love struck.
I feel you.
I was with her, and we had been dating for a little minute. And my parents, because I'm the baby boy, so it was like my mom didn't want to let go. And I was like, bro, I'm trying to like grow up, I'm trying to come into my own. And she was just like holding on with the death grip. I mean, like if I go out, I had to be back at like 8, and I'm like, I'm in high school. Yeah, and I'm like, it's everybody was kind of starting to branch out and do their own thing, and I was just on lockdown. Like, I don't know if you remember, but I didn't get a phone until I was in like 9th grade.
Damn.
Yeah, and everybody at that time, people were getting phones in like 6th grade.
I got one in
5th grade.
7th, but it was just like a flip phone, and like it didn't even have a phone line. It just had like some text messages. Like if I was in an emergency, I could just send a text message real quick. Didn't even have a phone line on that.
Had that Razor, that Motorola Razor.
Yeah,
I was fly with that.
The Razor was the shit.
I was feeling fresh. I said, yeah, I got the Razor. You feeling fresh in class?
You remember the Sidekick?
Yeah,
flip open.
They had like the one that flipped up, and then the one that like twisted around. Them those are fire.
Yeah.
I think I had a BlackBerry at one point. And then,
those were always weird. I saw people with Blackberries. I was like, damn, that must be so hard. You must be fucking up like so much with all this
little
small
buttons.
oh, it sucked so.
Yeah.
It was so tough.
And
Those
then,
were
like,
terrible.
I remember Robbie used to have one, and he would like be trying to send emojis on that hub, and he'd have to like click it like 18 times to find the right one. I was like, bro, for real, get a new phone, like, or stop sending text messages.
Honestly,
like,
the phone designs are kind of cool. They were trying to keep it fresh, so they were doing all types of shit.
Yeah.
I was like really trying to keep it on point.
Nowadays they're like, all right, same design, different camera, slightly different screen. Maybe the buttons feel different.
That's dope
There you
though. The
go.
amount
Have
of
fun.
ingenuity and like creativity that they had to come up with just to make
just
it
to stand apart.
Yeah,
Just to stand out.
And shit, as long as you now, it's like you're staring at the screen. No one gives a. It's like it kind of looks cool.
Now, if you're a phone company that isn't Android or Apple or what's it, Huawei, if you're not one of those three, you're really wasting your
Well,
time.
Huawei is part of Android's like 7 different companies. Google. You have
well, Android's just
Motorola.
technology, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Google,
Oh, damn. I
Motorola,
didn't know that.
Samsung. Huawei's a part of
I
that.
knew all of them used
there's
like
one more.
Android like software. I didn't know that they were all like.
Well, I thought they just made the software that goes in the phone, but everybody produces like their own device.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
what it
know
is.
that.
Yeah, so it's kind of that's what I'm saying. Like, so the ingenuity on Android. That's why I like it so much better. Don't get me wrong. I've been thinking about getting an iPhone just for the fact it's easier, to communicate with other people.
I think it's just better, like as far as like the things that you need a phone for. Like for Androids, I think they're better for like if you want to use a phone for everything. You can use this phone for anything and everything you'll ever need at all in your life. It's right there on the screen. I think iPhones are better for like this is what I need my phone for. If it does more than that, cool. But I don't really give a fuck. It's just a phone.
Yeah, if you really like tech savvy, go with Android.
Right.
But for me, I'm not a big phone person, and I didn't want to get an iPhone because it's what everybody else was doing. I was like, man, fuck that. I don't want to follow the wave. But I was like, if it's gonna be easy, it's gonna be simple. All I do is hop on Twitter, bullshit, hop on Instagram, bullshit, or send a text or send an email or a phone call.
Yeah.
It wasn't no point in me having an Android, so I was
Right.
I go to iPhone.
I use my phone a fair amount. I go through the files, downloads, because I'm doing a lot of this stuff. So.
See, because I know people that use like their like note like with the stylus to like actually do art. And they actually do some good work. So like that makes sense. You can't do that on an iPhone.
Yeah.
That, like at least not yet. But that's how like for art or like even business, like when they have like the data sheets and things that you can create, like basically a type of like Microsoft Excel like on the Android and things like that. Like that shit's pretty dope that they have that shit, but I think that you would only really need that shit if you like. It's like you would only need an Android for that type of shit.
And I mean, even in big companies now, you'll see a lot of people with iPhones because you can have that technology in something else. You don't necessarily need it on your phone.
Right.
Because that screen's so small, if you get to start doing like spreadsheets and stuff like that, it's just gonna make it more complicated than it has to be. You want a bigger screen as it is.
Right, yeah. And see, another reason that Apple's good for me is I have a MacBook, so like the Apple to Apple connection is it's really savvy. Like I like the way that it works. So like it's really easy to find everything that I need type shit.
And that's how Apple really gets you locked in because once you get the iPhone, it's like, well, damn, now I gotta get the MacBook, or now I gotta get the computer, the desktop, or whatever it is, just to have that accessibility and that ease of access from device to device to device.
You can do that with Samsung though.
I mean, you can,
but you can do that with most Android stuff. Like I mean, just
Google Google's like the leading innovator and almost leading technological.
But what I'm saying is like just with like basically what I'm trying to say is like so this computer right here is an Acer computer, but it still uses that type of software, right? Probably. But they have other different brands of Toshiba and everything else.
Yeah.
That's all using either Google or Android software or whatever.
I'm talking about Google phones themselves.
Oh.
Google phones can connect to like other Google devices. Samsung can connect to other Samsung makes TVs.
Right. What I'm saying is like, do they have like a Google laptop or a Google book? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like they have this devices set up like perfectly in Apple for compatibility.
Yeah.
There is more variety in the Google and Android world.
Yeah, you might be
just
right.
today.
Yeah, that's fair though. That's
There's a lot
fair.
more variety.
Like that. Okay, so in 9th grade, you just got a phone.
Alright.
You just got the phone.
Just got a phone. 10th grade, started losing my mind, ran away. Bro, do you know I jumped out my window one night trying to run away, and I was on the 2nd story?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you break your leg?
Not
Twisted my ankle right before a
Nice.
football game when we had to march. And I was telling Mr. Summer about it, and he was just like, "You're stupid."
Classic T song, man.
Yeah.
Classic T song.
So that seems like a personal problem.
Wait,
I'm gonna
yeah.
go back over here.
Bro, we had a
T song was cool though.
I forget if it's like fire code or whatever, but you had to have a ladder in every room. And so I was on the 2nd story. I dropped the bitch out the window, and this is the first time I'd ever used it. And you would think it goes all the way to the ground. No, that hoe stopped like 10 feet short.
Oh
So
shit.
I was just dangling. I was like, boom. I hit the ground. Cause I had a leg go and I hit the ground. I just looked up at it for a minute. I was like, damn. I know I fucked up.
Said even if I want to go back up, that's fucking high
Bro.
as shit. I can't even reach that.
Bro, I had to climb on. So we had a window sill on the 1st floor. I had to like climb on the window sill and grab the ladder and like pull myself back up.
Did you get away with that?
Huh?
He's like your
My
parents.
parents, I mean, they eventually found out because
Oh, okay.
I fucked my ankle up.
Oh yeah, okay.
How'd you do that? But you know, I was playing outside or some shit.
I
Yeah.
fell.
Yeah.
Marching practice got real rough.
I mean, they put 2 and 2 together because it was like, that was the week I fucked my ankle up, and then the next week was Halloween.
Oh, okay. So it was like you ran away with the twisted ankle. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
That's
Wait, were you
hilarious.
dating Kimberly at that time? Was that
Yeah,
the time you dated?
Yeah.
Wow, man. Talk about 9 years later, but
Bro.
still at the same. Well, I mean, you know, you had.
It was
But
meant to be because we dated for like 2 years in high school. We broke up for a little bit, and then we got back 3 years ago. So we've dated for like 5 years of our life.
Out of the like 9 that you've known each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it was weird because when we got back together, it was just like she had a house. One day I went over to the house and I never left.
Damn.
yeah, I was kind of. What is up? She was like, yeah, he just. The way she told her, he just never left.
Well, that's
down.
That's beautiful though. It's like kind of like the fire and the passion was still there after all that.
Yeah.
She gonna tell your kids, be like, yeah, I just couldn't get rid of his ass. I just couldn't get rid of him.
Bro, and it's weird because like now I try to, when people talk about their relationships with me, and they're like, oh, I think I'm moving too fast. I can't be the person to be like, yeah, I think you're moving too fast. Because I mean, I just jumped right in like feet first, and you know, we had a house together, we was living together. She had a dog, so like we was taking care of the dog together, and we put like all our finances together.
Right.
And it was like boom off the bat. But I think like when it's supposed to be, like it's gonna work. And I think also it was the fact that that amount of commitment right out of the gates like made us like work through shit.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
I feel you. And that kind of, it's like, I guess what that, fuck, I lost my train of thought. That's beautiful though. It's like
Yeah.
kind of the way that you all were able to figure everything out. So like, would you, like, I guess, push that to other people to say like, if it feels right and you don't feel any hesitation in that moment, then go for it? Or would you say maybe be a little bit more smart?
I wouldn't say I would push it because we already had a context of who we were.
Right.
You know, there was already some type of history there. And, you know, getting back together for us because my family knew her family. And of course we dated in high school. So outside of high school, we were different people, but there was already like a foundation kind of laid.
Right, yeah.
You know, so
It's like you were different people, but you knew who you, like each other were, like in
Right.
shit. Yeah.
So we had to go through a phase where we were relearning like the new person.
Mm-hmm.
So she was relearning who I was at that time, and I was relearning like who she was at that time.
Mhm.
But if you're just like meeting somebody and going into it blind, like somebody off Instagram, somebody you ran into at a mall or something, don't do it.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, because you never know.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, I used to love when y'all were together. Though the first time, we'd always just go over to her house. You know what I'm saying?
Bro,
it
all
was
the
like
time.
it was like a family. That was good times. So.
And that's what's dope. Like to this day, we're very family oriented people, and that's why it works out because we knew above anything like we were just family first.
Right.
You know, And so when we got back together, like we still had people over to our house all the
I
time.
miss that too, man. Yeah,
All the
I miss
time.
that too. Honestly, those are good times. You said, nah, I didn't even know you moved. So I remember I was at school one day. I was going to San Jack. Martin, you know, Kimberly's cousin. I saw him. I was like, yeah, you know, I was like, I haven't seen Malik. How they doing? He said, oh yeah, they moved to Tennessee. I was sitting there. I was like, that's my homie. I mean, I didn't hear nothing.
It happened.
I said, what?
So spur of the moment. It was literally the place I was working at the time. They were like, hey, you want a promotion? I was like, yeah, I'll take a promotion. All right, it's in Memphis. All right, that's cool. You got to go in 2 weeks. And I was like, 2 weeks? And then it went from 2 weeks to like 1 week. And it was like, I didn't know if I wanted to take it. And it took me like a week to decide. And then when I decided, they were like, okay, but you got to go at the end of this week because we need you up there. And I was like, fuck. So we were literally like just packing everything, trying to get everything ready to go. And it was like, boom, like now I live in Memphis.
Now I'm just in Tennessee, bro. It's just happened in a 1 week span.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't even know he lived there. I was like, bro, I just saw him a month ago.
To be fair,
what?
To be fair, if that's the story, it's like during that week would you have liked him to send a text? This man had to pack all of his shit and move to a different state, not down the street.
He said, let's go, honey. We're moving over the summer.
You would think that process of moving would be somewhat simple or fairly simple, but when you're working with a company and you got to get compensation for this, I had to get a U-Haul from them and get this and get that and get this and get that. It was like telling people I was moving was the furthest thing from my mind. It was like, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. Like I didn't even tell some of my family members I was leaving. It was just like, peace, like I'm out of here, you know? Because at the time, my brother was in the Navy, he was in Seattle. My sister went to school in Alabama and she lives in Atlanta. My younger sister goes to school in Los Angeles, and then my other brother, he lives here in Houston. Okay. So we were already spread out.
The fuck out.
Yeah.
Your sister goes to school in Los Angeles?
Yeah, she goes to school in LA.
I did not know that.
Bro, we're all over.
So for me, goddamn.
Bro, so for me, it was just like a.
I'm sorry.
Where's she at school? Loyola.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's actually a good school. Damn.
It's a good ass school. She loves it.
Fuck yeah. That's fucking congratulations to your sister. Holy shit.
She hates being away from home, but she likes the program she's in.
Okay, what's she doing?
Like multimedia. She wants to run a multimedia agency.
That's
dope as fuck.
Yeah, that's good. That's smart.
Yeah, I mean,
fucking all power to her,
bro, for real. But I mean, trying to get all that shit worked out, and then figuring out like where we were gonna be, and getting U-Haul, and packing stuff up, and getting the house ready, and moving all of your bills from one location to the next. I mean, it was a headache. And then, you know, I was just used to everybody being all across the country. For me to get up and leave was nothing.
Right.
It was just like, okay, like, this is what we do now.
Right.
You know, we just, as a family.
My turn type shit. It's like my turn to do my thing.
Yeah, and it was, at first it was weird because we grew up and everybody lived like in this little area. Everybody lived in this area. All my aunts, uncles, grandparents. My great grandma didn't die until I was like in 10th grade. And then my great grandma died right after that. But like it was like 4 generations.
You said your great grandma died after your great grandma?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Oh, wow.
Bro, I can't even imagine, because like they say it's like a parent should never have to see their child die, but like imagine like your child having a child that had a child. Yeah. And you still see your child die. Like that's fucking crazy. Like how do you live that long?
And I mean,
that's a lot.
She was
5 generations, bro. God.
She was what? I mean, we believe because she was so out of it at that time. She was so far into life. She was in her 90s. She was in a home. My great grandmother, she died on a surgery table.
Oh man.
So she went in to get an operation and she died on the table. But we believe that when she went, it was like boom, boom, back to back. Something happened with my great grandmother, and they weren't talking anything like that because they weren't really connected because my great grandmother was just mentally gone. Right. That when my great grandmother passed, something like released out of my great grandmother, and it was like, okay, I can go too.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
That's weird, but honestly, wow.
It's kind of peaceful, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of beautiful. Like in a way. It's like it's like her unfinished business type shit on this earth.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where you gotta think that people are tied together beyond just the physical.
Right, yeah, like there's a interconnectedness through us that we may not have to even see or speak on. It's just there.
Felt.
Yeah.
It's felt. So how you liking Tennessee? How's Memphis?
Man, if you've never been to Memphis, I believe Memphis is a city that kind of missed its window of opportunity to really boom. Because when you look, so Nashville is in the further east side of Tennessee.
Right.
Memphis is in like the far bottom west corner. But Memphis geographically is so well placed because it's right there on the Mississippi River. It's literally at the corner of Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. So you got 3 states right there in that one vicinity that all contribute to the economy of Memphis. But there's so much to offer as far as like the culture. Memphis has Beale Street, which is like Bourbon Street. And it's all based on blues. So it's a rich history of blues. There's a lot of talent that comes out of Memphis. But there's a long-standing history of racism. And a lot of people that kind of went through, like Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis.
Yeah.
A lot of people that kind of went through that are still alive.
Right.
And that local government has been corrupt for a really, really long time. And so people are still bitter and there's still heavy undertones of racism in the city. I mean, you can see it in the way the city is built. There's areas where you can look across the street and see multi-million-dollar mansions, and then you can look right behind you, and I mean, there's trap houses. And the only thing separating them is either train tracks or a big-ass brick wall.
Right.
And that's it. So the way Memphis has kind of positioned itself,
It's kind of wild.
it's crazy to see. Like when you go and you look at some of the apartments that people are living in, and you look at some of the housing facilities that people are in, or some of the communities that are there, you can tell that they used to be like really affluent areas, and it was just like a massive fleeing of people, and then they just shove all the poor people into those areas. So
they do it.
man, it's
Have you heard about like the one-way tickets that they give people to Las Vegas? Homeless people. You give one-way tickets for bus tickets to homeless people in like LA and like in California. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak cities. I forgot which city it was, but they're actually giving homeless people tickets to get the fuck out of here and not come back.
and never come back.
It's not like they're setting them up for opportunity. They're just saying, here's a bus ticket, so you're not an eyesore for our city.
That's fucking crazy.
It's fucking wild.
It's terrible, if anything.
But so wait, I was gonna ask is like, so would you attribute that like lost opportunity for Memphis to the racism?
Yeah, I think Memphis has kind of been privatized to the point where in every phase of racism, you need some type of vehicle to disguise it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think now the vehicle that they're using is privatization. And the biggest thing that I see is Memphis has so many private schools, it's ridiculous. And the biggest difference between Memphis and like Houston, in Houston, you don't have to send your kid to a private school to get a good education. You know, the state of Texas, if you graduate, what is the top 10% of your class?
Yeah.
You get guaranteed admission, not paid for, but you're admitted into any public university.
Well,
And
some are
then-
7,
And then
some are a little bit
and then
higher.
from there,
Gotcha.
you're able to apply for scholarships and things like that.
Right.
But it is automatic admission for most colleges.
UT
in the
is
state
at
of
7%.
Is that
UT's
7%?
at 7%.
So some of them have a different threshold.
But that's fluctuated since we were in high school. I
Yes.
believe it used to be 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, regardless. For most
Right.
public schools, it's going to be 10%.
So there's a general trust that if you're graduating from a public school at a certain level, you have a good enough education to at least be viable to that institution.
Admitted,
Or you can,
right.
you at least pass certain barriers to get into it.
Yeah.
In Memphis, people do not trust the public school system.
Yeah.
And it's because the local government has like stolen from the public school system time and time and time and again, and they're not doing anything to really feed the kids. As far as when schools get in trouble financially, the first thing to go is extracurricular activities.
Right.
But what does that ultimately do? It just drives the kids out of school because nobody wants to go to school for core curriculum. Nobody wants to go to school for math, science, English. They're going to school because they want to play basketball,
Go to
want to
art
play
class.
football, art class, theater, band, whatever the case may be. And then they use the extracurricular activities as the incentive to do well in class.
Like a reward system, right?
Yeah.
So like if you want to stay in class, you gotta pass your. I mean, if you want to stay on the field, you gotta pass all your classes, type shit.
Exactly. And then when you go a little further within each household, you have different, different expectations. You gotta have A's or B's or whatever the case may be. To keep playing on a team, whatever. But in Memphis, it's like when you go look at the facilities that these kids are in, or if you go look at the amount of investment that they're putting in to the equipment or the coaching or whatever the case may be, it's really not there. And so ultimately the kids don't want to go to school because there is no carrot, in front of them to incentivize them to continue to do well around that activity.
Right.
So you take that activity away, then you're ultimately taking away the reason that they go to school in the first place.
Right.
And now you got
take away
kids.
their drive.
Yeah, so lack of drive, they're not going to class, and then they end up roaming the streets. Like, I can't tell you how many times, because I drive for Lyft and Uber, I'm just driving around. I see kids 13, 14, 15 just walking around doing nothing in the middle of a school day.
Damn.
So I mean.
That's wild to see, though. Damn, boy, where's your parents at, kid? Like, how we let you out here in the streets like that?
And you would think the parents would be engaged, but ultimately, because it's such a well-built system of poverty.
Yeah, if you're bred into that, it's kind of a cycle. It's gonna repeat itself over and over again. If you don't have that drive, you're not getting an education. What are the chances of you teaching your kids, hey, you should get an education? If it didn't work for you, what makes you think they're gonna tell their kids it's gonna work for them?
Or further than that, even if they do tell their kid, they might not be well prepared to get that message correctly if they weren't able to do it themselves.
Here's the crazy shit about Memphis. So FedEx is based in Memphis. If you come into the Memphis airport, there's a Memphis airport, and then FedEx has their own separate airport. FedEx employs so many people in Memphis, it's ridiculous. But a lot of the jobs are low paying, like warehouse jobs, temp jobs, to where they're paying these people at most $11 an hour.
Right.
And a lot of times, those people, they don't know when they're getting off of work. They get off of work when they say the work is done. So that means however many boxes we got to send out today, or however many, packages we got to ship. When we're out, then you can go home. It's not like hey, we're here from 9 to 5, and then at 5 o'clock you can go home.
And that can be beneficial, or it can hurt you, because you can be there for a few hours and get everything done, but you might need the money for those other hours, and you're not going to be able to do that because the day's over. Exactly. Or vice versa, you might be there all fucking night and doing this work that just because they said we're not done yet, you got to keep going.
Yep.
And so it can be good or bad.
And when your schedule is in flux like that, and you're getting paid low hours, you're either going to have to A, pick up more work somewhere else, or B, go without. But ultimately, what ends up happening is that the kids don't get that investment at home from the parents, because the parents are either trying to make ends meet, or they just don't have the time to be at home and, hey, where's your homework? Hey, pull out your report card. Hey, I'm going to attend your basketball game. Because when you're on the basketball team, that matters. Like, as a kid, I want to look up and see my dad, like, hey, even though you're on the bench, like, I'm here.
Right.
In 8th grade, I played basketball on the B team, and I rode the pine. My dad was still there, like, damn, you suck, but bro, I'm here.
He
like,
said, yeah, you still my son.
Yeah.
I'm not too proud right now because y'all lost by 30, but hey, we don't get him next time. You still my son. I'm here for you.
Bro, that was, and a lot of that stuff goes unnoticed as a child, but when you get older, you start to see how that affects your relationship, like with your parents. You see how that affects how you view the world, because ultimately you may sour on something. Something may happen to you in that particular day, and you might snap. You might just go off, and it's just because, like, oh, I looked up and I seen everybody else's parents, but my parents weren't there.
Right.
And I might have balled out, and nobody was there to see it. I still remember to this day when I was like 10, I hit a home run, like my very first home run, and I was running around the bases, and that was one of the days where my parents didn't show up because I got 5 siblings.
Right.
So they're just spread out, and I looked up and nobody was there to see it, and I was like, damn, that sucks. So I can only imagine what that feels like every single day.
Right.
To have a parent, but your parent just physically and financially cannot be there to invest in you with the little stuff, homework, attending games, attending events, you know. So that's just another reason why kids don't want to either go to school or they don't participate.
Right.
You know?
So when people are forced to make that decision, like, do I get more work or do I go without? It's really the kids that are going to be going without regardless, whether they're going without for the food or things that they need for the house or school, or they're going to go out by time with their parents. They're not going to have that because the parents are going to have to pick up a second job or something.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And
It's
I mean,
very tough.
all the time you see people that are super successful in life that come from nothing, but they had that investment from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might have struggled financially and they might have had, you know, they might not have had the best shoes or they might have had to eat like tuna every night or whatever the case may be, but their parents were there. They were engaged.
Or at least some type of like influential character in their life. Like,
Right.
Makes a difference. I
It
think
does make a difference.
what's crazy to me though is that is a big factor, but even more so is how it's geographic.
Mhm.
How you know, okay, here you're still gonna have that. You know, you're gonna have those cases, but in certain places, you know, as you said, it's factory jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have factory jobs over here, but we're not relying on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we have a big oil and petroleum, but that's more so like a big company. You're gonna have more people making money off of that. You're gonna have a better chance.
Mhm.
So we have more opportunity here. You know, you're starting. You can get a job for $10 an hour here, easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, minimum wage is $7.25. And the crazy part is Texas has the best standard of living.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you can get a job at $10 an hour, most jobs will offer you probably $10 an hour here.
Yeah. I agree.
You're making, you know, I know people working $12, $13 an hour doing retail.
Yeah.
And you're telling me people are working jobs all day potentially
Yeah.
for $11 an hour.
Yeah. And I mean, when you talk about the geographics of it, when you look around the edges of this country, normally a lot of your bigger population cities are going to be close to water.
Right.
As far as the ocean, you got Los Angeles, Seattle, Houston,
Even
Miami.
Chicago has the lakes.
Yeah. So when you get further into the interior of the country, if you're not by a large body of water, and I believe it has to do a lot with history. People are just drawn to water. Water is a source of life.
That's why it's more marketable to buy a house on water than buy a house that's not just regularly on land.
Right. But the thing with Memphis that drives me crazy is Memphis is pretty much smack dab in the middle of the country. You're less than 10 hours away from Houston, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, and you're not too far away from New York. We drove to New York. It was like a 14-hour drive.
Yeah.
But you know, when you compare that to other places in the country, it's not that bad.
Right.
You know, so Memphis has the potential to be a much larger distribution hub. I mean, FedEx has it figured out.
Right.
FedEx is based in Memphis, not because they're like, Memphis is cool.
Just because it's so close to everything else. Or at least it's a focal point.
Exactly. And that's why I say they've really missed an opportunity to be what I believe the distribution capital of this country, because you got FedEx. I mean, that's a big fish right there. Their main thing is distribution. Why aren't you, and Nike has two facilities. Nike has a facility in South Memphis and a facility in North Memphis. Why haven't you been able to capitalize on bringing more large corporations here? Why isn't there, they have an Amazon distribution center, but it's not like a big Amazon. I think Amazon just had a bid where they put out 3 or 4 large distribution facilities, and Memphis wasn't attractive enough because the lack of education, the lack of skilled workers, you know, the lack of infrastructure in the city. So why haven't you been able to capitalize on your position in this country and bring more big corporations in? And ultimately I believe it's because they need a way to keep the people kind of uneducated. And in capitalism, and especially when you're in the private field, you need just enough poverty to where people will submit, but they won't revolt.
Right. It's like you have to have people be scared of something.
Right.
And if nobody wants to be on the street with nothing in their pockets, nobody wants to have to worry about their meal for the next day.
Right.
So therefore, if we as Americans understand that that's a possibility for a human in this country, that to a degree scares us into acting right.
Yeah. And so I think in Memphis they've kind of found a way to really keep the top 1%, not in the country, but in that area, the top 1% where they are, and keep everybody else kind of below that line and squeeze them just enough to keep them poor, but not keep them angry.
I really think the infrastructure, for some reason, I just keep thinking about it, is the way that you're talking about how the city's set up. You know, I think, personally, I believe that where you grow up definitely affects, you know, how you are, the well-being of a person, you know, how the society comes together. You know, each city, what your foundation is in that city is going to determine whether or not it thrives, how people interact with each other. Yeah. And with you saying it's how divided it is, I think that's a big reason why it is the way it is. Because here, you know, everyone's kind of in the mix in most of the big cities here, if you think about it. Yeah. You're pretty much all together. You go to New York, everyone's together. You know what I mean? Yeah. Los Angeles is the same way. So when you're bringing everyone together, and you kind of have a lot of things going for it. You know, they're trying to bring people in. That's the thing. Yeah. Memphis doesn't sound like it's really trying to bring people in. Yeah. It's not worried about that. It's worried about keeping what it's already there. It's not trying to change.
Yeah, and ultimately, in the state of Tennessee, Nashville is the capital. Nashville is growing like crazy. Like, Nashville has increased their medical district. Nashville actually won one of those Amazon bids. And Nashville has a huge tech industry. And they found a way to capitalize on their identity, which is country music. So Nashville is growing, much like Austin. They're growing faster than what they can handle.
Makes sense.
So sometimes those, in the state perspective, sometimes those funds get shifted to Nashville and away from Memphis. But I do think the lack of exposure that people in Memphis has is clear, and it's clear cut, because those people don't get out of Memphis. Like, when you're born in Memphis, you stay there.
That's what it seems like. Well, I've never been there, but it seems like from what you've said that most of these people are stuck to their ways. They're like basically stuck in this kind of like this pattern of not improving. Yeah. In which they, like you said, they have the potential to, but they have to fix a couple of things that they should be trying to fix anyways, but there could be certain control motivations that keep that progress from happening, which starts as that potential of where it stays.
Yeah, and really it's something that affects a lot of the interior of the country. The further you go into America, the more homogenous the communities become. There's not a lot of diversity in Memphis. It's very black and white and nothing in between. And being from Houston, we have people from all around the world. Right. You know, I've got friends from literally every continent. Not my parents are from this continent. It was like, I grew up there till I was like 13 or 14, and then I moved to America. So I grew up in the culture completely different from America, and then I moved here. Right. But in Memphis, they don't have that type of exposure. You know, it's a black community and a white community. They don't really mix. There is some overlap. You know, of course, schools and stuff. Stuff is desegregated, so people are going to mingle. But it's not like in Houston where it's just a big melting pot.
It's not like people are together, but they don't act like they want to be.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say, because like I said, there's a long-standing history of racism.
It's deep-rooted.
Yeah. So that, and like I said, the separation is built into the city. Damn. You know. So now what separates people is money, but how do you create money? You gotta be educated. How do you get the education? You gotta go to school. But when your school started off as a black school and a white school, and the black schools weren't being funded, and the white schools were being funded, well, now you're starting a generational, you get what I'm saying?
Right, no, yeah, it'll affect it more than just this class of students.
Right.
It's not gonna be something that you can just say, oh, we'll just put this in place and it won't have any effect on the future. It's gonna definitely have a progression effect.
Right, so the lack of education kind of starts like with the mom, and the mom thinks this is normal, so now the child thinks this is normal, you know? And so eventually you just have this cycle of just generational poverty, and they think that's what the rest of the world is like. It's like, no, you know, when you go to different cities, especially these big cities, you see people thriving and you see people working together, and you see different cultures and different backgrounds mixed and meld together in a way that ultimately makes you better as an individual, but they don't get that type of exposure. So when you're in the interior of the country, I often say that's why I don't get too upset with people that are ignorantly racist,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's really just a lack of exposure, you know, to different people.
How they were raised, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have one, let's say you have one particular person of a particular background. For example, we'll say you have one black person in your community, right? And as a white individual that would live in a predominantly white community, if I have a negative interaction with that one individual, I'm going to assume that that entire race of people is that one particular way, because that's the only thing I have to go off of. That's why I say I can only base things off of my personal experience and then attempt to learn from other people along the way.
Right.
But if you're not exposed to multiple black people, you're going to assume that all black people are like this one person because that's your personal experience.
Right, and you also can't be married to your beliefs. Just because you have a bad interaction with somebody doesn't mean anything else about anybody else.
Yeah.
That's one bad interaction. You can't just start extrapolating that upon time now, and just anybody that you meet that it looks like this person, talks like this person, has the same name as this person, or whatever it is. You can't just start hating that person just because this happened.
And that's why I say it's ignorant racism, because you were speaking from a perspective of somebody that's been exposed to a ton of different people.
Right.
You know, but when I'm in a homogenous community and everybody looks like me, everybody talks like me, everybody's from the same place as me, and there's one particular person that stands out, I can only assume that you are now the lone representative of your entire community. So everyone in your community must reflect your behaviors, because everyone in my community reflects my behavior. You get what I'm saying?
No, I do get what you're saying. It's kind of similar to like if a wolf enters a town. It's like the wolf was born to kill and eat and survive, and that's what the wolf was born to do. From our perspective, it's an animal, but it's only just an animal until it kills somebody in the community. Now we say it's a dangerous animal.
Yeah.
And now we don't know what to do with it. We have to either put it down or figure something out. But we're always going to be cautious of wolves entering the city now.
Yeah.
Because that wolf killed somebody.
For sure.
It's like, that's not necessarily fair to wolves. But at the same time, it's like you don't want people to die.
Yeah.
So they try to put logic behind their thought process rather than actually taking in the situation for what it is.
Yeah. Because it's really them just trying to preserve themselves. You know, self-preservation.
Right.
And protect themselves from something negative happening to them again. And that's why the way to really beat racism, and I think the way to kind of undo a lot of the hardcore, ingrained prejudice that have been built into some of these mindsets in the interior of the country, is to just talk to people, educate people, and come from a spirit of, I understand better, I know better, I've been exposed to more. Let me just try to share something with you, because if I attack your prejudice with my anger, now I'm just giving you another negative experience from somebody in my community, versus saying, hey, maybe you just don't understand. Maybe you just don't fundamentally have a foundation of what multiple people from this background seems like. Let me give you a positive interaction with somebody, and let me kind of undo some of that shell that you put up around yourself.
Right. It takes composure to do that, though, because it's a lot easier to be angry and act on your anger than it is to be sane and do what you need to be doing in that situation, especially if somebody's disrespecting you.
Yeah, for sure.
With that being said, so I have a question. So you haven't gone to Memphis, coming from Texas. What do you think really makes a city appealing? Because a lot of people are starting to come. I feel like the Texas population is growing steadily. I see a lot of people wanting to come here. LA has been a big city that a lot of people have been going to. New York has been as well. But personally, I think Houston right now is one of the fastest building cities.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, because LA is starting to get overpacked, and it's starting to become something. It once was something where people could go and they could make something of themselves. Now I feel like it's becoming diluted, and it's also becoming overpopulated. Same with New York.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You're still gonna have good interactions there, and you still can go out there to make something of yourself. New York's still gonna be the business hub of America. But there's what do you think it is about Houston? What does Houston really have to offer? What is something about a city that makes people want to go there?
Well, I think
about Texas itself.
The allure of just specifically Los Angeles and New York for a long time was, hey, if you come here, you can make it. You can be a celebrity, you can be a star, whatever the case may be.
But now anyone can make it, with the internet.
And that's the problem. That's the problem I think that they're going to start facing, and we'll see a lot of people start to move away from these big metropolitan areas, because you no longer have to be in the middle of that city in order to be successful. There's opportunity that's going to spread across the country because of technology, internet, stuff like that. The reason I think people are moving to Houston specifically is because the low cost of living, no income, no state income tax, and then I think for a long time Texas had this like backwoods stigma put on it, to where people thought we were still like riding horses and
Riding my horses.
In the age of education, people have hopefully learned that is not what goes on down here.
You would hope.
I'm saying, it's like, bro, you look at me and you put me on a horse, I'm gonna be very uncomfortable. I promise you. Never ridden a horse before, and if I would do it today, tell me I look stupid, and I would agree.
And I mean, I think that's the dope part about Texas, is that you can really come here and not feel like you have to be one particular thing. So I think when people go to LA, there is this melting pot effect, but a lot of times people feel like they have to live up to like the glitz and glamour and keeping up with, what does this person have? What does that person have? I think Texas, we got a little bit more laid back approach to where you can come here and be successful and still be low key. You can come here and be uber rich, but live in the middle of nowhere and not bother nobody, and not worry about nothing, and drive your 1974 Ford. You can come here and be middle class, hardworking individual and have nice things or not have nice things. That's ultimately up to you. But I think there's just not as much pressure that comes with a Los Angeles or New York City to be a celebrity or be a spotlight.
I think that's a big point, honestly, because it's like whenever you think about it, it's like when people go to LA or New York, the main thing that brings them back to where they came from is pressure. Yeah. Is the pressure that they put on themselves and the kind of the city puts on you.
And it's expensive.
It's either you make it or you die. You gotta survive, and if you can't do that, then you gotta get out. So like that type of pressure can really have an effect on your creativity and your productivity.
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me though, because Houston has the capability of being the city to make it great because of all those things. People take pride. We're swinging out here. You've got your rundown car. You've got the rims on there. You know what I'm saying? You got the Houston culture. You know what I mean? And it has the potential for people to come together and be this community where people grow and really where art can thrive. But for some reason, I think it's just this competition here. It's getting better. Don't get me wrong. I'm watching it grow before my eyes because this younger generation. I see a lot of people, especially doing stuff similar to this. People working on and kind of moving up. People are starting to work together a lot more. So it's getting better, and I think it's going to take just that group of people to say, hey, if we all just stay here and we don't leave, we can really build a community here.
Because you're starting to see people. I've heard a lot of people leaving like the Chicago area and coming to Houston.
Heard that as well.
A lot of people are leaving Los Angeles because it is like the housing market's crazy. Mm-hmm. There's houses the size of apartments that are going for like $600,000, like ridiculous amounts of money.
There's like 1-bedroom apartments, studio apartments that are fucking like through the roof, like $1,500 a month.
Yeah,
it's like, really, bud? Like,
so that's part of.
Don't even get a yard.
And that's part of like trying to keep up with like everybody else in the glitz and glamour. And ultimately, what you kind of see is within Los Angeles, this inflation amongst themselves. There's parts of Los Angeles where they have it strictly zoned for like single family houses, just because the real estate there is just crazy.
They have to just to afford everybody else like a potential like housing.
And then same thing with like San Francisco. Because that's, you got a lot of big tech up there.
Yeah.
So, the real estate is so nuts. People are like, why the hell would I be here in California paying $600,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house? I can go to Texas, get like 6-7 acres, and pay $400,000 and be happy and live peacefully.
And leave it for my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's land that I own, so therefore it's not a monthly or a yearly bill that I pay my landlord or something like that. Whereas in Texas, you actually get to build something for yourself. If you buy 6 or 7 acres, you can build a farm and never have to work for a company again. You can work for yourself and grow crops, sell those crops. You can be your own boss at that point.
Yeah.
like potentially if you wanted to do that. What I'm saying is you'd have that option.
Yeah, and that a part of that is because Texas is such a huge landmass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Texas is the second largest state, only behind Alaska, right? In terms of landmass.
I think so. Yeah.
No,
I think
yeah,
that's
no, it's true. Alaska's huge.
It's the
There's
first.
so much
it's the
land out
largest.
there.
It's the largest state unless you count Alaska.
I would not want to live out there.
Oh, no,
There's just there's too much going on. You got animals walking, running around.
See, because I personally
No.
feel like Alaska's more Canada than anything, just because of like Sarah Palin at this point.
Really, Alaska does have that Canadian vibe to it,
Yeah.
though. It's super hard out there. It's wild.
So I mean, when you look at Texas, there is so much space. That's why Houston isn't really built like a Chicago or New York, which are built vertically. Houston is built horizontally.
Right, it's more spread out.
Yeah, and that's why when people come down here from different big cities, they're like, "Damn, this place is huge."
Right.
But it's because we have the ability to spread out. We have the ability to live, really like 30 miles away and be able to commute to work.
Right.
You know, but I think ultimately that's going to start to change simply because there's going to be so many people moving here. Houston is getting in the 2020 census. Houston will be above Chicago, so it'll officially in
Be
2020,
third.
yeah, be the third largest
I
city.
thought it already was the third.
No, it's the fourth. It was the third, then Chicago passed it in like 2011 or something
So
like
now it's
that.
gonna be third again.
Yeah, it's about to move back.
Yeah.
It's still next to New York and LA.
But see, but that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna make that point. It's like whenever you say it's like, what do you think like is gonna like bring Houston to the next level? It's like, where do you really see it going? It's already number 3 in the whole country. Out and the only 2.
I think what people mean is it being a hub for people to come to.
But it's like
It doesn't need to be though. I think
It's
that's
kind
one thing.
of-
It doesn't need to be.
it kind of already is in its own way. I would say that. It's
No
like,
one's saying I'm going to go to Houston to make it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about that or say that ever.
But
you know
that
what? I'm
doesn't
going to go
make-
to really make it in this
So
world.
wait, so are you defining?
Unless
your,
you're petroleum and gas.
Are you defining your hub to just be somewhere where people make it?
That's what people.
That's
I
a
mean, how a
hub?
lot of people. Yes.
I think
Okay.
so.
That's what
Okay,
a lot of people.
I didn't know we were talking like on that term.
Because-
I thought you were talking about like bringing people together, not just necessarily being successful with what you bring together.
Well, I think
I thought that's what you were talking about.
Well-
I didn't know you were talking about success and like how far you could push.
I
it.
think we're good at bringing people together.
Exactly.
But
That's my
it's-
point.
But yeah, what I mean by taking it to the next level is becoming, that city where people are saying, because I think it's getting there. That's what I think. And what is that going to mean for the city when people are saying, hey, let's go to Houston and start something bigger? Because it's getting there to the point where it's everyone wants to go there. It's like this, everyone's going to want to work with you once you've made it type of thing.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to go to these places because it's got that, clout per se, but it's got this stigma around it saying, oh, this is the business hub. This is where successful people are, or this is where Hollywood. You got Hollywood over here.
Entertainment hub. Yeah.
Exactly. So Houston, I think right now, people are coming here, and it's the perfect time to hop on if you're an artist. Because this right now, I think it's getting to that point where people are building and finally understanding, hey, we can come together, we can really make something happen. And I think. But what's going to happen once that does happen? People are going to want to come here.
I don't know.
How is that going to transform? Do you think Houston's going to keep its, hey, we're chilling over here, you know what I mean?
No.
You think it's going to get chopped and screwed?
To answer your question, no. I think real estate's going to go through the roof, and I think people are going to start acting a lot differently. But I would also note that I see art as more of something pure rather than can I make money off of this?
Oh, absolutely.
So therefore, it's like if Houston becomes a place where people say I can go make it there, then the art is going to go through the floor, in my opinion, because people are going to be more worried about making money rather than pure art.
Just as it has in the other two places.
Okay, yeah. So that's my point. It's like I think that if you appreciate the art that Houston has and like kind of like the hub that it's been created to, then you wouldn't really press for it to go any further. In the sense that you wouldn't want people to come here thinking this is where I'm gonna make it, because that means that they're setting themselves like on a limitation. If I don't make it here, I have to go back. But instead of that, you could just bring people in, say be productive.
how do you get people to be productive?
I mean, first of all, if anybody's leaving where they are initially and it's not for a job or a school or military or whatever it is, it's just off of their whims, they should already have productivity in their head. If they're going there to be lazy, they're going to be unsuccessful no matter what. That's just that's just life.
I think ultimately Houston has positioned themselves with oil and gas to be the future energy capital.
I agree with that.
Right.
I agree with that for sure.
So they have to, within the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be crucial that Houston makes the shift to not just oil and gas, but solar, wind, I'm trying to think of that. Water, like water turbines and things like that. Houston has to label themselves as not just petroleum, oil, and gas, because the world is slowly but surely becoming more resistant to
Petroleum.
accepting those, as a primary source of fuel.
And
So
energy, you definitely need some more, I guess, like world friendly.
yeah, and even
If we became the energy capital, that would be insane to see where we
But
would be.
see, we already
How would that change
kind
Texas?
of are in a way. We already kind of are.
No,
in a
we
way,
are in
for the simple fact that we don't use water or solar or wind energy as much as we should.
We're the biggest oil distributor in the country for sure. I think
And
even in the world, I
And
think
oil is the biggest.
But
market
here's the
that we
thing.
have.
Here's the thing, as a city, you have to play chess, because there was a point where the Midwest was producing so much coal, and they were saying, hey, we are the coal capital, we are the energy capital, and then they didn't make that shift, they didn't make that change, and now you see they kind of just got left behind.
Right.
So when you're holding on to this asset and you're not really moving with the times, then you'll start to see that the world will leave you in the dust, and then that empire that you built, it'll slowly start to crumple.
Right.
So if Houston wants to capitalize on the momentum it has now, it has to continue to build, not just on the petroleum and the gas platform that it already has,
To go further
but
than that.
yeah, you gotta just slowly introduce more options. Slowly say, hey, we're now providing, like I've seen Exxon already talk about like the algae farms that they're
I
working
heard
on.
about that.
Yeah, so they're making their commercials, which means they already have the infrastructure to do it. They already put the research
Just
in.
putting the advertisements out now.
Yeah, they're just letting us know, hey, we can do this shit.
Yeah.
You know.
That's crazy.
So Houston, if they can jump on these trains and be the leader in the forefront, then I think you'll start to see Houston become the new LA, because it won't be about
We'll become our own thing. I don't want to say new LA. We won't. I don't think we'll end up.
well, just in terms of just sheer population, people moving there for opportunity.
That's true.
You know.
So you think prices are going to go up, or do you
Oh,
think
for sure.
land will go get
No.
cheaper? You think it's
No,
gonna
land won't get cheaper.
Yeah, everything's going up.
So you think we should buy it? Like you think because land's already kind of expensive, but do you
Yeah.
think if we buy it now, that'd be good? Because I heard at one point they're thinking about building a Riverwalk in Houston. They've been talking about it for a while.
I mean, they're gonna have to. You know, you want things that are.
Hmm?
Where would you implement that at in Houston? Like, you mean like outside of the
They were
city?
talking, from what I heard, it was being talked about because of someone who knows that works on the city.
Mhm.
They were talking about putting it in the third ward, which would completely change the game because you know the third ward is more of a low income area.
Yeah.
That's gonna definitely skyrocket. And I know this is sounding terrible. This is a capitalist point of view, but if you wanted to, you'd go in and buy land now.
Yeah.
You would have to go in and buy land in the third ward now because
Right.
when that stuff starts happening, and it's already happening, you can see it. You know, UH was built right there.
Yeah.
And that campus is only getting better.
Yeah.
The schooling's only getting better there. People are starting to actually want to go there. When we went there, no one wanted.
Yeah.
But first of all, you went there, no one really wanted to go there.
Yeah.
I went there, no one was even thinking about it as a school. People were like, I guess it's right there, UH. It's a commute. You know what I mean? It's not too expensive for a college. I'm gonna get a good education. It's still a university. After I went there, football team did pretty well. Boom, people started going there. Now, you know, from what I hear, I know someone that's going there now. They're saying, you know, it's a lot of people going there now.
Yeah.
It is getting better. A lot of people
I
actually
guess
want
I
to.
didn't notice, but personally, when I was there, it seemed like it was hella people there.
I mean,
And
it was-
even before I went there was a stigma. Not necessarily a stigma, but it was known, bro. It was an option. It wasn't like outside of people's options. First of all, I knew
Wasn't
more
like-
people personally. When in high school, I knew more people planning to go to U of H than anywhere else.
I didn't. I knew people were talking about UT.
Personally,
People were talking about Texas A&M.
I know people were talking about that.
Baylor.
Let's just talk. Are you able to even go to that place? First of all.
That's fair.
No, you're not. Okay, so shut your face. Let's talk about where you're actually going to pay for your college at. Most people went to U of H that I know.
It wasn't like where they wanted to go. It wasn't like
I didn't go where I wanted to go. If I wanted to go to college, it probably would have been in LA. I can't pay for that shit. Sorry. So let's talk about reality, not.
and that's what I'm saying. In the reality, people, it wasn't. You know, when you're growing up, UH is where I want to go. You know,
don't know, bro. See, I disagree with that. I think there's very
now it's gotten a lot
but
better.
see, but you have to think about
I'm
it this
telling
way. You have to think about it this way. It's like you went to high school in Dickinson, Texas, which is 35 minutes away from U of H. So therefore, most of the people aren't really going to be down for that community. They'd rather just go to community college. All the other people are going to be trying to live on campus.
The campus life at UH when we went.
That was trash. That's for sure.
And that's also another thing that I mean that contributes to the that contributes to the way that the school runs. I don't care what you say. Campus life is, that brings students in. That's gonna want to capture them and say that what's bringing money to the school. That's bringing money to the school.
Yeah.
What I would say is that maybe people outside of Houston weren't trying to go to U of H, but pretty much the majority of people in Houston were trying to go to U of H.
And that's another thing that I'm saying.
It's like it's not like it was.
It's not
like
a
it was
school.
a non-marketable.
But now you
school
have more
for
people
women.
from a lot of other areas wanting to go to UH. Is what I'm saying, and it's getting more populated. And with that coming, they're building more stuff for the campus. They're
That's
expanding
just
out.
because funds were
They
available.
they built more dorms and more
And
apartments
also-
for campus, and that's expanding out in the third ward.
Also, Tillman Fertitta has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Fertitta gave that school so much.
He
They have a
put so much
fucking
money.
Tillman J. Fertitta Center for the basketball team. That hoe is live. I was on campus last week at Earl's house, and I saw that even from the outside, that place is retardedly dope. Because if you remember the old basketball gym that we had to take tests in type shit.
Yeah.
That was the gym that they fucking played in, bro. Now they have a whole stadium. I would agree.
No,
with
it's
you.
nice. I like it.
I would agree with you, but I would say for the marketability point of view,
Now it's exactly.
funds had a lot to do with that.
But
more
that
than
just started when
anything.
his first year, and then our first year.
That's
That
recent
all
stuff.
just started.
But also, Tillman also just started taking control of basically the Houston area and Galveston area. He
Which,
just got control of that.
If
in the
anything,
past,
that goes
5,
to
10
even
years.
more what we're saying. In the third ward, that's gonna
That's
raise those prices in the third ward regardless. And with him doing that, I would not say it's too far fetched to say they build a Riverwalk, which is gonna spike. That's gonna move
I
people.
would say that that's the wrong place to build. If you're gonna build a Riverwalk and want it to be as successful as it is in San Antonio, it has to be
But what I'm saying,
close to the Toyota Center.
you say that.
Close
That's
to
not
the
too far
Minute
from
Maid.
Toyota.
No, but what you
It's
say,
not.
it's
I
not.
think it's
But,
too far.
but what I'm saying is that it's a low income area. You think they're gonna
No.
care about moving people out of there? Saying we're building this
See, but
Riverwalk.
that-
You know
but
what I'm
that-
saying? And then
you
building
say
around
care
that.
about moving people out of there. That's what causes infractions and fucking problems in neighborhoods. Whenever people are trying to gentrify neighborhoods and, hey, you want to buy my house so you can do what? This is where I raised my family. This is where my family raised me. Type shit. That's when you start causing problems. I got money. That means I can build whatever I want.
But as more people come into the city, who's to say that won't happen?
I'm not gonna say that won't happen. What I'm saying is that's how problems are caused
It could
in neighborhoods.
It could potentially.
People have problems with their neighborhood that they grew up in getting gentrified.
But that's the thing. That's why I would say buying land is important. Once again, is because you could buy that land, and you could even just still rent it out to those people. But then it would come up to you at that point, someone else saying, "Hey, I want to buy this land."
I would say the only reason to do that is for the profit margin.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to, when you have land, you're able to protect that area to a sense.
But I mean, ultimately, as
You're supposed to protect that area.
you're talking about it from the viewpoint of an investment.
Right.
If you're talking about it from somebody that wants to live and be in the city and take part in the city,
And thrive.
yeah. Somebody who's been here for years, and that's where the difference between home ownership and renting comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just a renter, guess what? Suck to suck. If your landlord says, "Hey, I'm selling this shit. I'm out of here," peace be gone.
You may
have
have
no choice.
You may have a few weeks to get out.
Land
Yeah.
is a good asset because you can make money off of it. But I'm gonna go even further and say, if you look at situations similar to Chance the Rapper,
Mhm.
where he buys land and tries to help build, he goes back to Chicago
Yeah.
and he helps build the city
Mhm.
because he actually cares about it, grew up there, and sees what it's
And
worth.
that's beautiful if you're from that area and you care about it, because essentially you may not be a homeowner, but you are somebody that's willing
Respected.
to. Yeah, you're investing in that community because that community invested in you. What if I'm somebody coming in from Serbia and I don't give a shit about Houston? I just want to make money. If the people from that city aren't owning those homes, owning that land, owning that property, no matter what you say, you may pay $1,200, $1,300 in rent. That's cool, but ultimately you don't have as much power, or you don't have as much pull. You can vote, you can put representatives in place, but when somebody's ready to relinquish that land to go to something other than your rental space, sucks.
It's tough.
That's
Doesn't
why I
matter.
think you should buy this stuff. I mean, we don't have the money, but if you were to get a good sum of money, buying land's important.
Yeah.
I think personally, because then at that point you own that section. If someone else wants to buy it from you, you can say no.
Yeah.
No, this is my land, and then that's how you help build a community. Which
Yeah.
sucks though. It kind of sucks because you think, oh, the city's gonna help build this stuff, but if someone else owns that land, it's a really crazy thing to think about. Because why don't we fix up these streets and fix up this area? Well, if someone owns that land, it's not up to them.
Yeah.
It's not up. That's that person. They can say nah.
I mean, there's like a homeowners association that like forces you to do
In
these.
neighborhood.
But everywhere doesn't have a homeowners association.
Right. That's
And so that's why I say it's important, because let's say you are renting and you do need your streets fixed, right? If the landlord doesn't care about the damn streets because he doesn't live there and you're renting there, if you go to somebody and say, hey, I need my streets fixed, they're not really going to care too much about what you say because you're not paying tax dollars.
You're not the landowner.
Yeah, the landowner is paying tax dollars. So what the landowner has to say is way more important than what you have to say, because you're here today and you can be gone tomorrow. But if I'm a homeowner and I'm here, I can file for whatever, and
Against the city type shit because they're not cleaning up after themselves or fixing the roads for you to be able to
right.
use your home. Yeah.
And the city's going to be a little bit more, or the elected official in the areas are going to be a little bit more responsive to what I have to say, because they understand that I am investing in this community through my tax dollar.
Right.
But if I'm just a renter, so what? And I mean, like I said, I drive for Lyft and Uber. I've heard this from city officials myself.
Right.
They could, and that's a big issue that Memphis has. A lot of these people are just renting property for years and years and years on end. And when you think about the business of renting, the business is, hey, I'm going to charge you an amount of money that not only covers the mortgage for this house, the taxes for this house, and the expenses for this house, but I'm also going to make a profit off of you. So sometimes these people will rent houses for 15 plus years and they will pay off their house 2 or 3 times. Like, it's ridiculous. A lot of times people will pay like $1,200, $1,300 for rent, and you could literally go buy a house, be an owner, and have more say and more influence in what goes on in your community.
Yeah, it's like paying for a monthly subscription more than anything. You're not putting a house on layaway. You're not paying for it as you go.
Yeah.
It's a monthly subscription to live there.
Yeah.
We talked about this in one of our earlier podcasts, was the fact. So this first part's gonna be a little off topic, but I'm gonna tie it in. So basically, back then people built these beautiful buildings, these beautiful structures. You have like the 16 Chapel and stuff. Stuff similar. But now, especially here, you see so many of the same buildings, because you can build so many duplexes, so many apartments, right next to each other. You know how much money they're making off of that?
Yeah.
Who cares about how it looks?
Yeah.
If you need a place to stay. You know what? I know you need a place to stay. There's not too many places to stay, especially in places like New York, where space is limited.
Yeah.
You're gonna take what you can get,
Yeah.
and that's just stupid expensive. Whoever's owning those buildings and that land are making super profit.
Yeah. Real estate. I think I read real estate makes the most millionaires, but that's also
Land, yeah, for sure.
But that's also why it's important that everyday citizens, you don't have to be a real estate agent, you don't have to be a broker, you don't have to be a multi-billionaire, but as an everyday citizen, you need to have a fundamental understanding of, hey, what does land really mean? What does it mean to really own something? Because when your school district is trying to raise funds, what do? They assess taxes. When your street is fucked up, what do? They assess taxes. And a landlord doesn't care. Everybody wants to lower taxes, but your landlord doesn't give a shit what that money goes to. He just wants to go cheap as possible.
Right.
So
he can raise his profit margin.
Yeah, so when let's say I have a block of 16 landlords and they're not taking care of their homes because, hey, the more money I have to spend on fixing this house is the more money that I'm losing out of my bottom line. I don't care if the streets are fixed because I'm just gonna have to pay for that street being fixed. I don't care if the street lights are out. I don't care if you can't see when you're coming down the street, or I don't care if you can't see when you're walking into your front door, because all that is eventually doing is costing me money, and I don't live there. So I don't give a fuck how it is, just what is my bottom line.
Right.
Versus if I have a block of 16 homeowners that are saying, hey, I want my kids to be safe. I want to be able to drive down the street and not hit a pothole, because that's going to blow out my tire and that's going to fuck up how I get my kids back and forth to school. Right. I want my yard clean. I want my neighbor's yard clean, because one day I might want to sell this house myself, and if the neighborhood isn't preserved, then I'm gonna lose thousands of dollars because because the market value won't appreciate my property. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know this. I've had to deal with this shit with my mom and shit. This shit's fucking retarded.
So I mean, it's important that people understand at a young age, like where we're at right now, that it is okay to rent, but renting is not the long-term solution.
Right.
Even if you invest in a condo, own something. You know, if you don't want a yard and all that, go buy a condo, go buy a townhouse, buy something with an HOA that provides you with some sort of lawn service or whatever the case may be, or maybe you just have a patch of grass in your front yard, but own it.
Right.
Because then you will have more say and more influence in your community, and ultimately that's what home ownership is about. It's not about, hey, I want to own this building. It's about, hey, I want to determine what my immediate surroundings are like. I want to determine if you put a fucking river walk right here.
Right.
You know, I want to determine if my kids go to a shitty school or if my kids go to a great school.
And it's not even about like determination. It's just rather like having the option to determine. It's like I might be okay with a river walk, but you're gonna have to ask me.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like I might be opposed to everything that you request, but you will request.
Yeah.
So like I feel that it's not like you're telling people not to rent. You're just telling people to rent with education.
I always say this. I've talked about this so many times, and people need to realize it. We drive the market. What you invest in, that's what is gonna drive whatever happens.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're investing in. Actually start to care about things. Educate yourself on what's gonna better yourself, better the things around you. Put your money towards that, towards assets that are gonna help that.
Yeah.
People want to invest in stocks and make money. You can do that, but invest in something that might actually make a difference as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Because I mean,
Or something that might help your neighborhood or your community.
one thing I learned recently is people don't realize, like, when you have a 401k, a lot of times you're just buying back people's mortgages.
Really?
So yeah. So
Talking about retirement, right?
yeah. So the way, and I might fuck this up, but that's why this is far from finished. This shit might be wrong, but it might be right at the same time. So the way mortgages work is that a lot of times the people that issue the mortgage, they don't give a fuck about the interest. Right. What they're gonna do is they're gonna help you get this loan, and they're gonna collect fees off of it. So it's like, let's say you came in and you want to borrow $5 from me, right? And I'm charging you $2 in interest. I might not give a fuck about the $2, but I might charge 50 cents to you who care about the interest, right?
Right.
So you need the loan. I'm what we call a loan originator.
Right.
So I'm going to originate that loan, but you're not going to be paying that money to me. All I'm doing is getting you set up, right? And then I'm going to pass it off to you.
I'm paying him that money.
Exactly.
It's the banking system for you.
So the grand scheme is there's this person that needs a loan. You go get a loan. Somebody's going to service this loan for you. They're going to sell it on what they call a secondary mortgage market. So there are people that actually care about making the interest off of your mortgage, right? So they're going to take these mortgages and they're going to package them together. And they're going to build these big, huge, like complex securities and mortgage-backed securities and things like that in order to minimize the amount of risk they're taking. Because some people are going to default. Some people are not going to make their home payments, stuff like that. So they're going to package them together, and then they're going to send them off back to the person at the top who has the loan, and they're going to say, hey, this is what your 401k is going to. So ultimately, not only are you getting the loan, but as the person at the top, you're now buying back that same fucking loan you got, and you're getting fucked twice. And everybody else is making money off of you the whole way. Everyone else is making money off of you. Yep.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
I would encourage y'all. I think y'all would really like that. Look into the secondary mortgage market and how people actually buy loans.
Like kind of like the cycle that never returns to you.
Yep.
That's how the banking system was started anyway. It's just about you. Oh, we'll keep your money, and then someone else says, can I get a loan? Oh, I have this money that someone gave me to save. They take a portion of that. Here, you can have this money that we don't have, isn't really our money, but you're gonna do that, and then you charge interest on that. So they're making money off of other people's money that you gave them.
So they're banking off of, like you said, the risk factor of saying like these people aren't gonna come need this money type shit. So I can give that to these people.
Yeah, because really what interest is how much risk do I have to take to give you this $5? You know, how much of a risk are you for not paying me back my $5 plus the $2 interest that I'm charging? And that, you know, people, every business, they want to take as little risk as possible. You know, now you have people that go out there and they're trying to like strike it big and take a whole bunch of risk, you know, but the smart people, they just say, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of risk with a whole lot of people. And then once that happens, it'll all pile up. And basically, if I get a penny from 100,000 people, what do I have? $10,000? Or is it $1,000? One or two?
$10,000.
You get what I'm saying? So ultimately, I think it's 1,000.
I'm stupid. Sorry.
But ultimately, if I can guarantee that, you know, everyone thinks a penny isn't a lot, but to me, the person that's getting a penny from 100,000 people, fuck, you know, I just made $1,000.
Right.
You know,
I'll take that penny.
It's like, think about it this way: people who usually like are really good with computers, they take a penny from just a bunch of accounts.
Yeah.
Who's gonna know? Oh, I lost a penny. Who really pays attention to the cents in your bank account most of the time? Some people do.
I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You take a penny from 100,000 accounts, you just made $1,000. You do that repetitively each week, $1,000 a week. You must say you have another job. That's $4,000 a month from what?
So I mean,
a penny.
It's when you talk about risk and investment and stuff like that.
Also fraud.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's illegal. Don't do that. That's illegal. I'm just saying that's like a penny could definitely, it adds up. Don't do that. That's not something I'm encouraging.
Somebody that listens to
throw
this
that
works at a bank and like, no way, I could have done that all this time.
I mean, Wells Fargo was doing that.
That's not good.
No, it's not. Wells Fargo did that multiple times. They were opening fake accounts
I didn't know
and
that.
taking other people. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's hilarious.
And they're still a bank, and they're still up, and there's still got people banking there. So
My mom banks with Wells Fargo.
I wouldn't say that.
Fair enough.
It's tough.
But yeah, man, it's crazy. It's nuts how, you know, once you start digging into how our economy really churns, the people that really get fucked are just everyday regular people trying to make a living.
Yeah, for sure.
It kind of irks me, and that's what I was talking to you about earlier. Kind of, this is just gonna be a weird segue, but remember I was talking about the problem with Christianity?
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's a lot that goes on within Christianity, and I'm a Christian myself. I'm like a very devout Christian, but ultimately, you've got so many people with their hands in it that the intentional purpose has been diluted. You know, when you start to kind of peel back these layers on like the way churches work and the way pastors work, and you know, you've got these big organizations and bodies within Christianity, you tend to lose out on what the real intent of it is. You know, the real intent of, as far as what I understand, the American economy is so that the regular, everyday person can make a living and survive. You know, the real intent of Christianity is so that people who don't really understand where they're supposed to be going in life or their purpose in life, they can come into this organization or this body, the body of Christ, and find peace and joy and happiness. You know, but
it's what's sold to you, anyways.
And that's why I was saying, like, 3 things that really complicate Christianity. I say false advertisement, because you have people that tell you, oh, like, when you become a Christian, things become easy. It's like, no. When you become a Christian, shit gets hard. Like, it gets tough, because I can't go out there and, like, wild out the way I used to. You know, I can't go out there and be a misrepresentation of what it's really supposed to be. You know, but anytime something becomes harder, it also becomes more rewarding.
You say that,
That's
but
true.
within Christianity, people also do have the fact, I'm going to be forgiven, so you can go ahead and wild out.
That's when I was talking about false expectations.
False advertising.
Yeah.
False expectations.
You know, when you're called into the body of Christ, you're supposed to be a piece of work in progress, not just a piece of work. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
You're supposed to be striving towards something that's better, and understanding that along the way, I'm gonna stumble, I'm gonna fall, you know, I'm gonna fuck it up.
Right.
You know, and then you go back forgiveness. But if you just sitting there like, okay, hey, I'm gonna fuck up, I'm gonna fuck up.
Life's gonna throw you enough curveballs, so why are you asking for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you.
So
you'd rather the fastball coming down the middle that you can swing at every time, but sometimes you get a curveball and you swing, you're not gonna be hitting that hole. It's going under the bat every time. So it's like, yeah, I feel you. It's like sometimes like you shouldn't necessarily create issues for yourself, either for now or later on. Like just for the simple fact to say I could be forgiven, just because you don't know what those can kind of like lead to, I guess.
And as with anything else, and that's why I think we vibed for so long, because I think Daniel really, and I'm speaking on Daniel because I've known Daniel personally for a long time.
Right.
Daniel embodies what the spirit of Christ is, and Christ is about, peace, love, and if somebody's different from you, if somebody's not on the same wavelength as you, you approach them with love, and you approach them out of a place of acceptance, and that's how you get people on your team. You don't get people on your team with like hate and like arguing and condemning people. That drives me crazy when people start to go pointing fingers at you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. Well, at one point in your life, you was doing stuff you wasn't supposed to do, but somebody came into your life and was like, hey, this is the way you and I'm preaching right now, and I'm gonna stop. I'm almost done. But somebody came into your life with open arms and said, hey, you are a work in progress. Nobody on the face of the earth is complete.
Right.
There was one person that was complete, and he was sent to do something that nobody could fulfill but him. So when people start to condemn and persecute people, it's like you play a role. You trying to be filet mignon, you roast beef.
Right.
Shit.
It's nothing wrong with roast beef.
It's just not filet mignon.
It's not filet. It's one filet mignon. Yeah. Everybody else is roast beef. Like, just be the best roast beef you can be, and try to get more people to understand. Like, this is a body of being welcoming and understanding, and not creating a false environment of what was meant to be something else. Yeah. I know that was a weird tie-in.
No, we say this all the time, man.
I think it's good to hold people accountable, but it's also not so much your business to change their ways for them. You can't really answer people's questions, you just have to make them ask questions. It's like answering their questions for them is like somebody giving you all the money and power that you could have ever needed for you to have a successful life, and at that point you'd be like, I mean, now I don't have to do any of this other shit to even progress. I can just do whatever I want now. And it's like the reward system doesn't exist in that world. It's just kind of like you have constant rewards without earning that shit. It's just like, well, wait, like I still gotta wake up tomorrow and keep doing this shit. Like I don't have challenges anymore. Without challenge, what am I looking forward to?
Are you talking about as far as Christianity goes?
I'm talking about I forgot what my point was on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I want to say though, we talk about this a lot as well though. It's just when you start focusing on yourself and doing what you want, you're not worried about what's this person doing, what's this person doing, and you allow people to be as they are. Of course you should hold people accountable, but you're not the one to say you should be this person, you should be this person. We all fuck up. Yeah. We're all gonna have our mistakes. And the thing is, you can't always be worried about what everyone else is doing. When you start really focusing and doing things that you want, and the things to better yourself every day, and what can I do to better myself, that's how like you said, that's how you're gonna get people on your team, that's how you're gonna improve, and that's how things around you are gonna get better. Yeah. Instead of always trying to catch up to somebody. Don't get me wrong, it's good to have goals and stuff, and maybe say I want to be better than that person. Yeah. But it shouldn't be your main goal. It should be just to be better than yourself every day.
And you can have healthy rivalry with other people. Right. Healthy rivalry pushes everybody, and it's ultimately what makes us all better. But if you got to step on somebody else's neck to make yourself feel better and get to where you want to go, that's where I feel like people start stepping out of the body of Christ. And that's why I say like false advertisement, because you're supposed to be a representative of what this is really about. But you're going out and you're doing things that are counterintuitive to what it truly is. And it's being something that's counterintuitive to the true meaning of Christianity. And ultimately that doesn't accomplish the goal, which is to bring more people into the body. You're just pushing people out at the end of the day. Because like we were talking about with racism, if you want to really undo it and destroy it, you approach it with love and education.
Isn't it funny how so many racists call themselves Christian?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, who are you accepting? White people?
Yeah.
That's it. It's like that's not very Christian. It's not very loving or accepting.
And if you really like dive into it, you go into the text, the devil himself was an angel. And I don't like to use the devil a lot because people like use the devil as an excuse, like the devil made me do it.
Right.
But I do think that there is a constant battle within all of us because I think everybody is a spiritual creation inside of a physical shell.
That
you
makes
know,
sense, yeah.
so there's a constant battle of physical and spiritual, or you could say good and evil. You know, what in the Bible they explain is Tov and Ra, right? Light and darkness. So at some point, the Creator understood what darkness was. Like the Creator understands the depths of darkness. I hate when people say like God knows no evil. No, God knows evil. He knows evil better than anybody else you could think of.
If he's the creator of everything, then he's the creator of evil too.
Exactly. So
It's the only way to bring balance.
So at one point, if you think about the devil was an angel. You know, so evil knows the ins and outs of Christianity and knows the ins and outs of the churches. So you have to understand that evil can put on this cloak of spirituality, or it can put on this cloak of God or Christianity, or however you want to label it, and pretend to be something that it's not.
It's like the analogy, like at work. Basically, Satan read the code of conduct to know what he can get away with.
Yeah.
He knows basically all of God's tricks and how to beat them.
Yeah.
And effectively in some people's heads.
Why I hate politics though? It's all these people that you look at them and it's, they have this image of slicked hair. Just because they look a certain way doesn't mean that's who they are, and that's what
I'm a professional because I say so.
we kind of gotta wrap it up here though.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been great. Honestly, loved having you on here, Malik. It's been good catching up and great conversation. Honestly, it's probably one of my favorite podcasts that we did, and just a challenge. We always kind of shoot these out here. I just want to say, just start. My only challenge: start doing. If you have a goal in mind, start it. Just start it. Even if you don't know where you're gonna go with it, just do it. Start somewhere now. Even though if you don't have quite the direction, just fucking do it. That's all I'm saying. Start it. No excuses. That's all I gotta say. I'm Daniel. I'm one of your hosts. Okay, I'm one of your hosts. Alright.
And I'm Josh. Thank you guys for listening to another week. Far from finished. No excuses. Do better. Get some shit done today.
Y'all take care. Much love to everybody. Catch you next week.
Peace.